Okay, this is the first in a series of lessons on the actual educational system of this country over the last 60 years, or since the end of World War II. We're going to start off with the system for the first 20 years or so. It's called the Tripartite System. In the book, we're on page 58-59. So we're going to find out about the education system from 1944-ish to the 1960s. It was called the Tripartite System. To understand it and its critics. To learn it well enough to avoid dumb mistakes in the exam. I have seen more dumb mistakes in this part of the exam than any other part of it. I'll explain what I mean in a minute. Keywords: 11 plus exam, grammar, academic, technical, secondary modern, vocational means job, success, failure, unfair. Okay, a typical question. So just guys, how far? Sociologists would agree that educational opportunity has improved in the last years. It all depends on what number they put here. If this number is 60 years, you talk about this. If this number is 20, you don't mention this. Because if you go back 20 years, you're in the mid-90s, and this system ended in the 60s. I have seen lots of excellent essays on the tripartite system when that said 20. If that says 20 and you write a fantastic essay that mentions the tripartite system, you get 0 marks because you are stupid. Be careful about that. So, just make a note of this, just be clear on it again. In our culture, the main way of moving within the class pyramid is meant to be through education. If you are clever and work hard, then you do well. You get good grades, you get a good job. If you are stupid and lazy, then you fail, you get poorly paid or no job. Therefore, schools and how they are run is very important. What is this called? What is this system called? I will ask you in class. You should know this. If you don't know this, you're in trouble. So, in 1944, to try and make this come true, they brought in the tripartite system, meaning 3 types of school. Three. They said, well, 3 different types of school for all kids. Everyone's got to go. They said, right. To get into these schools, we'll have an exam. All the kids at the end of primary school will sit an exam called the 11 plus, the 11 plus examination, similar to the SATs that you've all sat. The top 20% of kids went to grammar school. So depending on the results you got in your 11 plus, you went to a certain school. If you got a good grade, good enough grade, you went to a grammar school where you did a lot of academic subjects. The different sciences: physics, biology, chemistry, maths, history, geography, Latin, lots of languages, bit of sport. Everything in a classroom with a book and reading, academic subjects. And there was meant to be technical schools. The next 10% of kids for teaching skilled engineers, technical schools. These schools never really happened. They called it a tripartite system, and they didn't build any of these schools really. But they did build, though, or did have, a lot of secondary modern schools. For everybody else, for the next 70%, there were schools for what's called vocational courses. Digging holes, sewing things, cooking things, digging holes, making things out of wood, vocational stuff. Yeah, that was the plan. The idea was the 11 plus exam found out what you were best at. So academic kids went to grammar school because that's what they should have been doing. That's correct for them. Most kids went to secondary modern because that was best for them. They were vocational. They were going to dig holes. They were going to cut down trees. They were going to build walls. They were going to cook things. They were going to sew things. In theory, this sounds fair because it's meritocratic. You sit the exam, everyone sits 11 plus, and it depends on what grade you get. So if you're a very clever working class kid, you can escape from being in the working class. You can go to a grammar school, get this fantastic education and become middle class. And indeed, lots of people did do that. In reality, it was not as fair as it made out, for several reasons. Firstly, people generally looked down on the secondary moderns. They thought, if you were in there, it's because you were stupid. You had failed 11 plus, therefore you in a secondary modern, you're a loser. Secondly, resources. Even though the grammar schools only had 20% of the kids, they got half the money. The other half went to the 70%. So the secondary moderns were run down, they had larger classes, fewer books, where the grammar schools had a much better deal. And thirdly, like everything else in Britain, it had a massive class bias. The 11 plus simply helped the middle class kids. They were much further ahead, they had all the advantages of private tuition, all that cultural capital they received from their families over the years. They were pushed for this exam, they were prepared for it, therefore many more of them passed it. And that was seen as a problem.